I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I put the mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns out with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's you lost, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed and
What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. So I've made a little bit of progress on the Civic engine pullout. Got a little bit further yesterday with it. Today I'm hoping to have everything done and possibly, depending on how well these nuts and bolts come out from the motor mounts, because they are pretty rusted, that I need to have this motor out today. So I don't really need to, but that's the goal. So few things I want to run over with you guys of where I'm at right now and what I need to do in order to get this thing out of here. So for the first thing, as you can see, I've got the axle out of the hub. I need to just pop the axle out on both ends from the transmission and then drain the little bit of transmission fluid that's in there. That way when we pull this thing out, it's not dumping all over the floor. So that's probably the first thing I'm going to do. It's probably the easiest out of the ones I need to do to get this thing pulled. So those both need to come out, as well as I need to finish the harness. The harness on these cars, on these motors, pretty much every Honda motor that I know of, the harness goes underneath the intake manifold, and I don't want to pull the intake manifold off. So I'm gonna just simply go back from the driver's side and work my way to the passenger side. I think there's a few plugs that need unplugged, and then the rest, the only thing that's really a pain with this is these harnesses are clipped into these little plastic clips that are on the mounts. So like that one right there with the blue clip right here, it's kind of hard since this car is so rusty. Most of these mounts are really rusty, so to get these clips off these mounts is a pain. So my thinking is I'm just going to try to unbolt them. There's just usually one nut or one bolt that holds them on there. So I got to finish that. It's just literally from right here to the other side of the intake. I need to take that harness off, then I can throw it onto the side, and then the engine's completely free of any harnesses, lines, or anything like that. I've already drained the power steering fluid, the coolant, most of it's already drained out, and as well as the fuel line. I've already disconnected it, let it drain out, and we should be good on fluids, as well as the clutch. We already got the clutch line. I forget where'd it go. It's somewhere around here, but the clutch is also, it's right here. So the clutch hydraulic line is disconnected from the slave cylinder, and I let that drain off as well. So all the fluids between the transmission and the motor itself is all drained, so we should be good on fluids. And then the last thing I need to do, which I don't know if I can show you guys, but the shifter linkage right there, kind of pointing at it for you, it's just literally one bolt ran through there. So as long as that's not rusted shut or the bolt's stripped out, it's just one bolt and one nut, I believe. And that should pop off from the car. I might honestly just take it off from the shifter and then figure out how to do it from the transmission. I know it's just one bolt that goes through there, but it's a specific bolt. So when you take this off, if you are doing this yourself, make sure you don't lose those bolts, because those bolts are specific to that. And I've learned that this is probably like my 4th Honda motor that I've done, because I owned a few of these cars when I was first driving, and I actually had exactly this same motor in my car. So I've already pulled these motors multiple times, and that's how I figured out that you just can't run any bolt and nut through that shift linkage. What will happen is you can actually put it in gear and move it all around. It doesn't lock itself out of each gear. So it's really, really weird. I had to drive it like that when I was really young. And that's when I figured out, yeah, you got to get that specific bolt and that nut to go through there and lock it. So don't want to lose those. And then after that, we need to go through, I need to get the hoist in here, and then we need to start unbolting the motor mounts and get this thing lifted out of here. This thing will lift directly right above it. So just got to get the motor mount on this side. There's one up here for this. And then there's one in the back, which is probably going to be the most pain to get that one out. But as you can tell, especially this one right here, it's really just held on not that well, right? It's just kind of, they're all rusty and they're all breaking apart. So this should be fun on how to get this out. I'm going to honestly go right here probably to get the motor mounts out of this, but they are just pretty rusty. So I'm not looking forward to getting those out. These aren't so bad. These nuts, these will probably break free pretty easily. I'll just break it right here. That way I don't have to worry about hitting anything on this side when it comes out. But yeah, that is the goal today, is to get this thing off. So let's get to popping these axles out, and we'll get that line for the linkage down there when we're down there. And then we'll start working on the harness. Everything on this car is rusted so bad, nothing's willing to come off of it. So I'm having to do this the hard way. I'm going to take the intake off. I'm just trying to get to the bottom bolts now. I got the fuel rail off, the top bolts off. So if I can get to the bottom bolts, take the intake off, I can get to the rest of the wiring harness. It's just, everything's just so rusted. It's taken a lot longer to get some of the stuff loose, or I can't get it loose, just like that bolt right there. It's completely rusted to where there's nothing to bite on it. So that's what I've been dealing with, but I want to show you guys the shift linkage. This is what, there's 2 shift linkages, right? So one's got a bolt through it. This is the bolt that I was talking about. You cannot lose this bolt. It's very, very special. And then the other one's got this C-clip on it. I think that's what we call a C-clip. You just break off of it. And then, yeah, you just pull them out. But, yeah, so I've got the shift linkage done. I've got both of the axles popped out. Even those, you can tell how rusted on. These were like seized up onto the hub of the transmission. That's how bad this stuff is. So, look at, I mean, just the axle right here is crazy. And then the shift linkage that's actually going towards the car, where it bolts inside the car, it's all underside of the car, right? It's all underneath of it, and everything underneath of there is just so brittle. I want to show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm just going to have to take the rest of the shift linkage out through the center console, because it's literally that bad. I'm going to have to drop it. I'm going to probably cut some of it off too. But this is what I'm talking about. So all this right here is just, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is all rusted. Don't really have a light to show you guys, but it's just so rusted underneath here that all this has to get replaced anyways. So that is the main reason why I'm doing this, because it's just everything. It's not necessarily the car that's rusted, that's really bad. It's all the parts attached to the body of the car that are rusted. And a lot of this stuff, I mean, there's so much crap underneath this car that's just bad, really, really bad, that connects to the engine that I don't want to drive it like this or even try to. So this is a good, you know, we got to redo all this stuff. So we're just going to be taking it all the way back out, completely gutting this thing. Like I mentioned in earlier videos, gonna make everything look just as nice as what we did the SRT for. So I'm about there to pull this engine out. The only thing I've got left to do is get the wiring harness out, and then I can set that aside, and then we can literally lift this stuff out of the car and get this thing gutted. So I'm gonna continue on working on this intake, trying to get all the bolts underneath of it out, and then I'll come back to you guys once I get all that part. So change of plans a little bit, but I was able to leave the intake on it and just get the harness thrown to the side. Now, if you're wondering why I did it this way, instead of just disconnecting the harness from inside the car and then just unhooking it and just pulling it out with the motor, it's because of this battery tray. There's a bolt inside of there that I'm gonna have to cut off most of this battery tray and cut that bolt off to get that tray out of there, because it's rusted on there so tight. And that sleeve for the harness is underneath that tray. It's actually got 3 or 4 bolts bolted to the back of the firewall to the car in order to pull that out. So I need to really get this motor out so I can actually get in here and cut that out and get all this other stuff removed. So that's why I'm doing it this way rather than just, because if I could get that tray out and I would have just pulled the harness and it would have been over with a long time ago, but that thing fought me. There was a lot of these little clips and they're bolted to the back of the motor, or some of them were actually welded onto the frame of the motor mount right here. So it was either, I broke a lot of them, as you can tell. I just snapped them because the metal is so brittle, instead of trying to pull it out, because once these are rusted, you're supposed to be able to just push this in and pull that out, and this green clip comes out. But since they're so rusted on there, you can't do that. They're so brittle that they just end up breaking off. So that's how I got that out. But yeah, we are ready to go get the hoist, put it on the motor, get it all stabilized, and start taking these bolts out to get this thing out of here. And then the rest is pretty much just brake lines. Got a canister, that battery tray, and then the hydraulic booster box and the slave cylinder to get out. And then after that, the K-frame, or the subframe. I don't know why I called this one a K-frame. It's a subframe that is going to actually come out too, just like we did the Neon. If you haven't watched that video, go back and watch that, because I completely gutted this engine bay. So we're doing the exact same thing to this. Underneath this car, like I kind of showed you guys before, tried to show you, it's just so rusted. So like that subframe on the bottom of it is actually like, most of it is more than just surface rust. So it's like big chunks have actually fallen off of it because it's so rusted. So once we get all this cleaned up and get out of the engine bay, I can actually drop the entire subframe at once and it will come apart. Everything will drop with it. So all this stuff will just unhook the brake lines. Obviously that stuff will be unhooked because we're going to take the booster out and stuff. But all this stuff will drop with that subframe. So we can just leave this on there and just leave it as a whole until we go to put it back together, because I am going to do the same thing again like I did to the Neon. And when I did that Neon, I pretty much replaced every front suspension part I could on the front of it, like everything. The only thing I think I did not replace is the actual knuckle itself and then the sway bar underneath of it, because obviously the knuckle is fine. This one's kind of, I'm gonna get them sandblasted to see what these really look like, but I might just go ahead and order new ones, because you can order like a new knuckle for like, it's like $100. So, and they're brand new, they're black. So I might just go that route rather than sandblasting it. That way I can just put everything back on. Obviously wheel bearings, brakes, inner and outer tie rods, new steering rack, new everything is going to go back on this car, even a subframe. Obviously they don't make, I think Dorman makes a like aftermarket subframe, but you can buy a used subframe for this. That's in pretty good shape for like 200, 250 bucks. So everything is going to get replaced. So I'm not worried about all this being together. I'll just leave it together, put it out back somewhere. And then, once we get the car painted, I can go through and just order everything I need at once, because all this stuff is going to be, you know, I'm going to do some stuff that's going to be like K-tune, some stuff's going to be skunk. Some things are, pretty much everything's going to be aftermarket on the suspension part of it. Besides the inner and outer tie rods and the power steering rack itself, those are going to be just refurbed OEM parts. But yeah, everything else is going to be aftermarket. So that's the way I did it on the Neon. It's not really too bad financially. You can do pretty much everything I just listed. So like your front suspension, everything, all the way from brakes, all the way to the power steering rack, with the subframe and everything. I can do all this brand new parts. Besides some of the used stuff you got to get used. You can do it for like 2,500 bucks and then you can buy new coilovers too. So like between $2,500 and $3,000, I can literally put a whole new suspension underneath this car and make it brand new again, which is the idea, right? So it's not really, I mean, it's kind of expensive, yeah, because for the car and everything like that, but it'll be literally brand new when it's done. So you got to think of it that way when you're restoring these cars, or any car really. That's what you want to do, is you want to go through and just start replacing everything, because it's just, everything's so rusted on it, and you don't want to put anything back on the car that does look shoddy, because you're going to replace it anyways once you get it back going and there's issues and things like that. So just do it all at once. Take the one hit, order everything at once. Now, obviously, I'm going to be doing a different motor in this. So I need to buy the motor first. And once I have the motor, depending on what motor I put in this is depending on what parts I got to buy, because there are going to be some things changing since we are swapping the motor. I really want a B16, just like what comes in the SIs. That's my like ultimate motor. It's not a K series. It's not like anything crazy. And my reason for that is the B16s and the B18s are what we grew up on. So that's why I want the B16, at least the B16. If I can buy a B18C for pretty cheap, I will do that. But these prices on these motors, especially the B series, they're just skyrocketing. Even an H series, if I can find an H series and put it in here, I'll do that too. But I know when you do some of those motors, like the motor mounts and things like that have to change. So I need to find the motor first once I get it all painted, and then go down the route of buying the parts for that engine, because obviously the axles are going to be different. There's going to be things that are different on those motors versus this motor right here. So I need to buy the motor first and then go down that hole. So it's a big chunk of change, but like I said, it's worth it in the end. Just buying everything brand new that you can, and then just butt it all back. It'll go back together so quickly. You don't have to deal with all this crap, and it'll be pretty much brand new at that point. So that's the goal. Heck, I even might tear down the back of the car too, since I've got it jacked up. I might take the rear arms out and the suspension out of the rear and do all that too. I'd like to find I'd like to get away with the drums and do a disc conversion. I found a set front and rear that came off an SI for like 1,500 bucks shipped to me, but that's pretty expensive just for the disc conversion, because that's the only thing I'd use on it is the disc conversion. So I'd like to do the disc, but I might just, depending on whether the body kit comes in or not, is depending on whether I do the rear at the same time. Sorry, I got the hiccups. But it definitely is getting to the point it needs done too, especially the control or the coilovers. They definitely need done. So I just need to do all this at once, and then like either put the car on a roller or something like that. So that is where I'm at right now. So I'm going to go get the hoist, and then we'll figure out where to bolt that hoist to get this engine out of here. Things have gotten really messy. So I've got all my motor mounts undone, the hoist hooked to it. So I'm gonna give you guys a little tip that I totally forgot about. You know how I said that I've done multiple Honda motors in these cars? I forgot one really important thing that you need to get before you even try to get the motor mounts loosened up, and that is the second part of the shifter cables. The one that just has that C-clip over it, it actually has a I don't know what to call it, but it's like a stud that's pushed inside of it. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. So down here you guys see the shifter cable connected, and you can see it right on top. There's that little push pin kind of metal piece that goes in between to connect the two, from the transmission to the shaft. So now I need to find a punch and punch that out without going too crazy and getting it loose. I vaguely remember these having those. It's not just a C-clamp that holds it, but it's that little piece of metal that's shaped perfectly to fit in that hole to tighten it, both of them up together, and that C-clamp goes right over top of it. I just spaced it, so honestly really forgot about it, that those even have that. So if you're working on Honda and you're doing this, make sure you check, push that little thing out. It just takes a little punch of the right size and a couple whacks, and it should come right out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But yeah, this thing is pretty much freestanding. It is ready to come out other than that. So I'm gonna get this punched out and get it pulled out. It is out. So got a big old hole now. I'm gonna probably wait till at least a day for all this stuff to dry up. It's really wet, and I'll sweep it out, clean it up. Just make sure everything's nice and clean before I jump in there and start doing all the rest of the stuff. But you can kind of tell now how bad everything really is on the inside of this engine bay. Up in the corners aren't bad. I figured those back there would be really shot. This one might be. It's got so much buildup right here. So, but I'll take like the canister out. All the whole subframe's gonna come down. All that stuff. So yeah, but I actually, what I did, I could not get the pin out. So what I did, you can kind of see it sitting here. I cut the shift linkage off. Let me see if I can grab that for you, because I want to show you guys this, how bad it needs a new one anyways, like I said. So that's just how bad it is underneath that car. Everything, not the car itself, like the underside of the car is not bad, but anything that's bolted to the car looks like this. So, and as you can tell, I've already redone all my brake lines and everything. Any like fuel line I did a few years ago when I was actually driving the car, because it was so rusted underneath there. All my fuel lines rotted and broke, so I had to go through and redo all the brake lines. That's why you see all the steel braided lines. This system was really cool because you really just bolt it on and re-bleed your brakes. It looks really nice too when they're done with it. So but yeah, everything on this car, even like the rear bar, when I was driving this car, it was so rotted underneath of it. It just, when I was driving it down the highway, it would little by little would just break and crumble and come out. So for some reason, the underside of this car and the engine bay got a lot of elements to it. It was from New Jersey, so they get a lot of snow over there. So just makes sense that this car probably sat outside for most of its life in the snow. So that's why we're going through and redoing this. But I will continue on tomorrow probably and start ripping all this stuff out. But for now, we got the engine out. I needed to clean up all this stuff, clean everything up, and start breaking down everything else, start cutting the battery tray out so I can get to that bolt once I get that canister off. Usually this stuff is pretty easy. Now, underneath of it, the subframe on the back end corners are pretty rusted too, where it bolts up underneath the car. So I'm a little worried that those bolts are not going to come out as easy as I hoped. But if I get them out, I can always order more new bolts for all that stuff, and just make sure everything underneath of that is in good shape to where we can sand it all down and, you know, prep it and paint it and get everything back to looking new. So that's what I hope, but that's going to be the determining factor whether I'm going to restore this shell, or to be honest with you, we might have to scrap it. Because if we get this subframe off and the bottoms are just as bad as what the back side of that subframe is, there is really no repairing that stuff, especially where it bolts up to. If it's just as bad underneath there, then you pretty much have to trash the entire shell. And it sucks because we got so far on this, and it's pretty much to the point of where we're being entirely gutted to where we can actually start prepping everything and painting it. But that's just part of these old cars that have seen a lot of mileage, or have been in the really bad states of all the elements, salt, snow, a lot of rain, you know, all that stuff gets inside of here and it just corrodes and rusts every single little thing. So I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping I just get the bolts out and it's just looks worse than what it does. It looks worse than what it actually is. It's not as bad, so that's the hope. But after everything was said and done, finally got the motor out by cutting it off. I couldn't get that pin out. For some reason it was being stubborn. Usually these pins on these are really, really hard, especially if, you know, if it's never been apart before. It's right in there is where it is. It's inside of there. I've got it to move a little bit, but I just couldn't get it any further than what it is right there. So I'll pop that out because you don't want to lose that. That's a very vital piece that goes in these linkages of these cars. But obviously we're gonna order more newer. Hopefully, I don't know if you know anything about ordering linkages, if they do make aftermarket ones that are, you know, really, really good, or I got to buy used. So let me know in the comments, because I don't honestly know. I haven't looked that part up yet. I was thinking I could reuse the linkage, but they're just, both ends are just really, really shot on this thing. So I'm gonna have to get at least a better used pair that's not rusted. And then at that point, I'm just gonna have it sandblasted and probably powder coated to make it last a lot longer. And we'll do when I get a new K-frame, we'll do the same thing too. It's gonna be used obviously, but I'm thinking about sending it off and getting it powder coated. That way it protects it for a very, very long time. So that's the plan, but I'm gonna end the video here. Thanks for watching. If you like these videos, make sure you like it, subscribe if you're not, and comment down below anything you guys want to talk about. I'll be glad to answer any questions. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.